Welcome to another episode of No Power Panel. I'm Noam.
And I'm Isaac, coming to you live from Meaford, Ontario.
We're in person this week. It's weird. It feels different. So we have a special episode this week. We're going to be doing our draft for the 2028 Democratic presidential nomination. We'll go 4 rounds like we did with our NDP leader draft. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out.
And I think this is going to be the first 2028 Democratic nominee draft from Meaford, Ontario ever done. So
I would expect so.
I hope we hold that title. We'll hold the title of first, but I think we might be the only one.
We'll have to see, but I would assume so. It's not a very big community here.
Yeah.
All right. So we have our trusty coin flip here to see who gets to have first pick. Isaac, do you want to call it?
Yeah, I'll call it. I called tails last time. I'll call tails again.
All right. And it's tails again. You got first pick yet again.
Well, that's a lot of pressure.
All right. Well, last time you picked the person who was first on both of our boards. Let's see if that happens again this time. Who's the first pick, Isaac?
Okay. My first pick is I was debating between 2 people, but I think the Democrats are in a sexist position right now. So I'm going to go with J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois. My reasoning is he's got extremely high approval rating in Illinois. He's progressive enough for progressives to stomach him, and he's got a lot of money, and he's got, I think, enough connections within the DNC now that he won't, and he hasn't ran before. There's a lot of names of people who have run before, and I think these candidates who run every time, usually they're not the winners. And for me, he just seemed like the safest pick this far out. I could have swung bigger, but I didn't want to. So.
No, that's fair. I think that he's definitely on the list of people who's going to run. He's definitely on the list of people who have a shot at winning. You're right. He's kind of he will be able to be in that middle lane of people who can talk to the progressives, but also be able to say, yeah, I'm a billionaire. I don't want to eliminate the billionaires the way that some people on the list might try to run. So I think that that's a very safe bet. He won't have to fundraise for a minute if he doesn't want to.
And he's already within Illinois got this memeable presence, the youth Absolutely. Online already, kind of he's not alienated certain elements of the base in progressive parts of Chicago and stuff. They like him.
They absolutely like him. The other thing that's not to be underestimated about the fact that he comes from Illinois is that Illinois is a machine
Obama
state. Yeah, right. They have a Democratic Party machine that knows how to do this, and Pritzker is very much running that machine right now. So that will be behind him, and it will support his thing.
And he very well could get 2%. He could drop out. He could drop out before the Iowa caucus.
Absolutely.
That's
what's great about how early we're doing this is we're trying to get as broad of a field as possible. We're trying to do it before people have ruled themselves out in various capacities.
And your calculus has to be percent chance of running times percent chance of winning if run, right? You're doing a combined probability because your probability isn't just chance they're going to win.
Yeah. No, exactly. We're trying to pick the winner here, not just who's going to run. So I'm going to pick somebody who I'm actually not sure is going to run. First up, I think that she has another office that she could run for in the 2028 cycle that she right now polling suggests is at the top of. And I'm gonna pick Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio Cortez.
Yeah, you were. That's a hopeful pick.
Well, I mean, it's hopeful, but there's rational.
Oh,
reasons
100%,
why,
100%.
right? So, like, let's just. Yes, I'm a big fan of AOC. I think she's great in a lot of respects, and I would want her to win probably if she were to run. Putting that aside, she knows how to run a groundswell campaign.
Mm-hmm.
She has a history of defying expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Her name now is synonymous with that in the Democratic sphere. So people won't be able to try to paint her as a non-hope and somebody who can't win, because that is inherent to who she is defying those sorts of expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that points in her favor.
All the oppo has been done already.
Exactly. Like, we're not going to find out anything new about her that we don't already know from her past. She could potentially have a massive ally in the mayor of New York at the time, which hopefully Zohran Mamdani will be.
She's going on tour with Bernie this year.
Exactly. And so I think that that was going to be my final point, because not only has that hit a number of states that she needs to increase her presence in to run a presidential campaign, not only does that give her the inherent backing of Bernie Sanders, which in 2028 is probably going to be the most powerful endorsement up for grabs, but it also, like, she's getting email addresses from every person who's attending those
Why
rallies.
are they going to Montana? Why are they going to Idaho?
Exactly. They're going there to build this grassroots army for what comes next.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, for 2026, but those email addresses go to AOC's mailing list, and that is going to be a huge, massive advantage that all of the rest of the candidates who are going to run are having to build that up.
They're getting thousands, if not tens of thousands, at every one of these.
Exactly. Now, like, she does have the potential to run for Senate. If she runs for Senate, she will likely beat Chuck Schumer in the primary. That's what all of the polling suggests right now. So she has a calculus to make about whether she wants to go the route of Senate and then maybe a presidential bid, a time or two down the road. And I wouldn't put that out of the realm of possibility, but I also know that all of those advantages means that if she runs for president, and the polling for the presidential field right now shows her as one of the top contenders, I think it needs to be said that she deserves an early pick in the draft.
Yeah, it's a great pick. It's a pick I would want to make. And I think all the points are rational. Yeah, I think the only thing against her is, she might go Senate first. And I think that's why I think it totally depends also on the situation we're looking at.
Absolutely.
Within the Democratic Party and also with the Trump administration. I think that is going to be if it's like business as usual type things where it's like and the team is feeling like, okay, we get you to Senate and then we do a term or even half a term or whatever and then run. But I think it depends on what's the election looking like. Does it look like, are we descending further and further into fascism? Do we need to put all hands on deck? What is this looking like?
And who else is right?
Exactly.
Right?
So can we meet the moment?
Exactly. I think a lot of it for her will depend on, is there another candidate who is clearly going to run
in that lane
who she would feel comfortable endorsing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
All right.
Who's up next for you?
My second pick is going to be the former mayor, then Secretary of Transportation.
All right.
But the job is to decide who's going to win, not to say who I want to win.
I hear you. Okay.
And Pete Buttigieg, the disputed winner of the 2020 Iowa caucuses, not 2024. It was 2020 Iowa caucuses. And he was a nobody. He had that groundswell support campaign came out of nowhere. Then he had 4 years in the Biden administration, making connections, building his profile, going on the freaking talk show circuit, going on Fox News, getting those little moments. I think he appeals to a certain element of those resist libs. They like it. He's giving them the sound bites they want. And he has
he's a decent communicator.
Yeah, and he is a good communicator.
Yeah.
And I believe he could put together a coalition that would win him a primary. Like, there's no, as much as I want to be like, come here and like build out my fantasy, if we look at past winners, he fits that profile. He had a high profile campaign, got in line behind the candidate the establishment wanted, was given a reward as a position in administration, as transportation secretary, and now is continuing to build his profile. He's also moved to Michigan. There's some speculation of like Michigan governor after Whitmer. Like, why is he in Michigan now? So because there's no future for him at state level politics in Indiana. I think that's why he lived it. They can make up whatever excuse they want of why he moved to Michigan, but I think the real reason is maybe state level, Senate governor. So I don't know for sure, but that's my take.
I agree. I think that there's certainly an element of it that he has a decent shot at, and he definitely, I agree. He has the profile. He will inherit a lot of the Biden lane from 2020. He'll be able to occupy quite well. And I think that is
and he's such an opportunistic little twerp, like he's been building his whole life for this. No, he's not gonna not want to find the next step. Whatever that next step is, he's gonna take it. So I might as well be president.
He's running. The question is there enough Buttigieg momentum in the field that we are shaping up to have to carry him across the finish line? Certainly, I think that, he's definitely going to be in the top tier. He definitely deserves a spot at number 3 in the draft. Other drafts have taken him even higher than that. He's definitely somebody to watch as the race progresses. I have 2 directions I could go.
All right.
My first direction is somebody who I'm also not convinced is going to run.
Okay.
But somebody who I think could do quite well. But I've already got that lane with my first pick. And so I think I'm going to go for a safer bet on somebody who I think is going to run. And somebody who I think could also do well, given that I think that they're going to run.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Governor Tim Walz.
Okay.
Give me Tim Walz. I became quite a fan of the governor during the Veep stakes for Kamala Harris, and I very much was an advocate for picking him along with much of the online left. And I think that their campaign wasted him.
Yeah.
Really didn't use him to his full potential. They should have had him going on the podcast circuit. They should have had him doing interviews. Unmuzzled. They should have just let him do what he did to get them to put him in that position in the first place. And instead, it very much felt like Kamala Harris was scared of him overshadowing her abilities in those situations. And so she held him back, and that really cost her. I think that they could have done much better in the Midwest states that they needed to win, that they failed to, if Tim Walz had just been allowed to go out there and be Tim Walz. And what we have seen since the election is an unmuzzled, unvarnished Tim Walz doing what he could have done during a campaign that used him effectively. And so when I think about the 2028 race shaping up, I go, a team that is built around him designed to help him do really, really well, puts him in those positions, and uses him effectively. And I think that is phenomenal.
And the teams that had him win in Minnesota were completely different from Harris's team, which was mostly Biden's team.
Absolutely.
And based out of Maryland. Like, they didn't know his appeal. They didn't know how to craft a message. And that whole convention, like, coach, it's so not appealing to who they thought he could be. It's like, let's like put a hat on him and say coach. It's like, that's not what makes him appealing. It's effective communication. Not a caricature.
Absolutely. Having his former football team members be a part of it was smart. Having that side of it be a part of it was smart. But he was also a social studies teacher.
Exactly.
He was also, like, why wasn't he helping drive home the democracy arguments? He was also a congressman who helped on veterans affairs issues dramatically. Why wasn't he helping craft the national security message instead of Liz Cheney? Right? Like, there was a lot of these things that they could have more effectively used him on. Speaking of people, though, that didn't use him effectively in 2024, and the current team, and the people who have helped make him governor in the past in Minnesota, one of those people is Ken Martin, who is now the chair of the Democratic National Committee. And so we've seen how the DNC can kind of, in the past, put their thumb on the scale without putting their thumb on the scale. They did it for Biden twice. They really did it for Hillary Clinton.
I think the thumb was firmly on the scale.
And I'm not saying I think that that's likely to happen, but I'm saying that the team at the DNC this time around is going to understand how to use Governor Tim Walz effectively, no matter what position he's in, whether it's on the ticket or not.
All right.
So that's my number 3 pick, and I think he's definitely going to run.
Your number 3 pick, or your
my number 2 pick? That was my number 2.
Okay, I'm going to stay in the same realm.
Okay.
I'm going to stay in your Veep stakes. There was Veep stakes, and if we remember the names from the Veep stakes, they were looking at those like white governors in swing states.
Yep.
There's one guy, I'm not going to mention him because I just don't want him on my team. And I'll take the other one. Well, not the other one. There was one other guy, but this is the one.
You've taken one of them already.
Yeah, and I'm going to take Beshear.
You're going to take Beshear. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I don't want the other guy on my team either.
Won't even mention his name. But Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, big deal to have a Democratic governor of a red state, especially at this polarized time where everything seems nationalized. It used to be much more common to, have Republican governors in states where they voted Democrat for president and the opposite way around. Also at the Senate level, now it's becoming less and less common. And I think it was the same thing all the pundits were saying during, the Veep stakes. It's like, they don't even have to know anything about him, about his policy, about anything. It's just like, oh, you're a Democratic governor in Kentucky. Okay, we like you. Like, that's all it takes. Yeah. And but at the same time, I do think he has been building his national profile. He has claimed he has interest in running for president. He is being very unabashedly Democratic, and like he's not trying to concede on issues because he's in a red state, like he's not on issues of, abortion and like these like social issues.
Oh yeah. And listening to how he ran in 2023 on social issues is a lesson that every Democrat should have learned going forward. And it was so disappointing to see the way that Democrats ran in 2024 because, like, he wrote the playbook. Yeah, he won in Kentucky, saying that trans people deserve rights.
Exactly. He's not apologizing for it. No. He's not being scared. He's saying, "I'm a Democrat, and this is what I'm gonna stand for." And now he's doing it on a national level, and he's making sure, as he is making these statements, that he is doing them with national platforms. He's doing it as the governor of Kentucky, but be very clear, he's doing it, also for the American
presidential. Yeah.
So I think he's likely to run. He has said he's likely to run, and I think he has that appeal. So that's my number 3 pick.
Perfect. He was next on my list as well. So I will move on. You know, as we're going through this list, it's becoming obvious that the Democrats likely have a certain identity that they're looking for next time around. And I think that that's true. And there are people who are women and people of color on my list. I've picked AOC, who is both. But I think I need to recognize, like we recognize that they have learned a lesson that I don't think is the right lesson to learn.
Yeah.
But it's definitely what you are hearing a lot of Democrats say in like off the record comments that are being leaked, which is that they need another white guy to run in 2028. And so I was between Georgia's 2 senators because I think that they both have a great platform to springboard launch. I'm gonna take John Ossoff.
Okay.
I think that if John Ossoff wins re-election in 2026, which all of the polling currently shows he's on track to do, he has a massive launching pad to run a very, very strong campaign. I'll just hit some of the big points. He's charismatic. He's relatively young. He's progressive, but not offensive to moderates. He still has some of those Georgia positions that he has to take as a Georgia representative. He has a history in media, understanding how that landscape works and how to play to it. He's Jewish, but not hyperly pro-Israel and pro-Zionist. He understands and he talks about Palestinians in a human way.
Which is a low bar.
Which is a low bar, but the other guy that we don't want on our team doesn't. So that, he at least does that. He will have the backing of Georgia's other senator if he runs, who is an incredibly powerful surrogate to have on his team from the get-go. I just think that he really does stand a phenomenal chance. And I've seen polling which shows him in the top tier of candidates. So I think that all of those factors combined just make me go, I think that he probably has a pretty decent shot.
Nice. All right, sounds good. I think that's a good pick. My last pick, I'm going to take someone who, out of the people possibly running with names now, I'd probably most want to see out of the names who are like likely candidates at this point, not including AOC. All right, so you took AOC. So I'm going to take Ro Khanna, who was the co-chair of Bernie's 2020 campaign.
Ro was lower on my list, but certainly,
he actually has done a little work to separate himself recently from AOC and Bernie, which I think is not the right move. I think he's trying to make strategic moves. Like, he's called himself a progressive capitalist instead of a democratic socialist, which isn't what I want to see from my progressive politicians. But he was, he's in the progressive caucus. Was he co-chair of the caucus at one point? No, he was never.
No,
but he was a justice.
Yes, he was a Justice Democrat
at one point.
Yeah,
and he was like
the first elected justice,
and I think he had some like position within Justice Democrats, like leader of like the Justice Democrats.
Yeah, because he was like the only. Because he won in 2016.
But over time, he's distanced himself. But I think he's one of those guys that, if AOC doesn't run, and if there's no one else really looking at that lane in the race, he can get that Bernie endorsement and he can get that AOC endorsement and he can occupy that lane if he is the most likely out of, that group. I don't know what your take is on that.
I agree with you. Yeah. So here's my thing about Ro Khanna. I like a lot about what he says and does. I like that he'll go anywhere and talk to anyone. He does podcasts, he does alternative media, he just will show up and talk to you and talk to your audience. And I think that that's really valuable and something that a lot of these candidates should be taking away. My concern about Ro Khanna is he strikes me a little bit like a Dennis Kucinich. Right? Where like I could see him being somebody who runs every 4 years for a couple of cycles trying to make that magic
can never
happen.
make it a movement.
Exactly. I think that he's not quite charismatic enough.
I agree.
He doesn't have that oomph.
He doesn't have the qualities that made an AOC, that made a Zohran Mamdani, that like created this like groundswell.
So I think that if that groundswell is there for the plucking and is waiting for somebody, and he can be the name and the face that Bernie and AOC get all of their people rallied behind, then I think that he has as good a shot as anybody else on the list. I don't know that he comes pre-made with some of those elements.
And like a Bernie candidate has to rely on mass individual donations, people sending that $10, sending that $20, sending that $5, sending that $5 monthly. Like they have to rely on that. And to get that amount of support, you have to have people buy into your cult of personality. Yeah. Like
Bernie in 2016 raised something over 200 million.
Yeah.
In 2020, it was upwards of 3.
He's not going to get the PACs, so he needs this.
Yeah.
And who knows if he has that in it.
Now, I will say he has been, one of the ways that he has been trying to separate himself from Bernie and AOC is in some of the softening around the Silicon Valley where he represents. Yeah. So I don't put it out of the possibility that
he can get that San Francisco money
would line up behind him. I think that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's my last pick.
So my team is Pritzker, Buttigieg, Beshear, and Khanna. What do you think of that?
Pritzker, Buttigieg, Beshear, and Khanna. I think that all 4 of them are running, right? Like I think that you have the team of people who are very clearly running and very clearly have a lane that they will occupy, and people that will support them. Mm-hmm. So I think that if this is a standard Democratic primary, you probably have the winning team.
Okay.
I'm going a little more if something really wild is gonna happen.
Yeah.
We've approached this one with slightly 2 different philosophies, and I'm leaning more into that with my final one.
Okay.
So I'm picking the person that I want to run as my final pick. I don't necessarily know that they will. I don't necessarily think that they can be persuaded to run, but I think that they should run, and I think that if they run, they beat every other single person we've mentioned, whether they've been drafted or not, bar none, easily, hands down.
Okay, who is it? I'm curious.
Jon Stewart.
Okay, I think that's a great pick. I thought you were going to say Bernie.
No, I'm aware that Bernie is too old at this point, and after the Biden fiasco, we can't. No, we can't.
I think Jon Stewart's a good pick. I almost went Stephen A. Smith.
So, like, the Democrats have not yet learned the lesson of the Trump era, which is that the winner is going to be a charismatic, bold person who isn't afraid to speak honestly and openly and just say shit like it is. Mm-hmm. And I think that the Democrats have very few currently elected politicians who are capable of doing that. I think that they have very few celebrities who are capable of doing that. Jon Stewart is the person who I look at in the current political landscape as the kind of closest analogous to Trump on the left. He's right on the vast majority of issues. He would capture the progressive lane in a moment if he ran. He has spent the last 30 years building up his progressive bona fides.
And he critiques the Democrats.
And he would, yeah, exactly. Like, Democratic voters don't like the Democratic Party right now.
It's how Trump won. He critiqued
exactly.
the Republicans.
Can you imagine?
Critiqued, he took a sledgehammer to the Republicans.
Exactly. Can you imagine a debate stage where Jon Stewart is on that stage and every other person that we've mentioned on both of our lists are on that stage, and he's picking them off one by one about the hypocrisy that they've had and about the various things that they've said and done that are just blatantly untrue, bringing up the Joe Biden lying about his health that all of them did, bringing up all of the targeting that they've done in the past on various communities to try and appease Republican voters. I just don't know how Jon Stewart doesn't win the Democratic primary if he gets into it.
It's a nice fantasy, but I don't see a world where he runs just because he's too smart and doesn't have a big enough, I think, like, ego. To want to run for president, you have to think you are the most qualified person to be president, which requires a humongous ego.
This is why he was my last pick, and not my first. And I think
we're having fun now.
We're having fun now. We're 3 years out from knowing who's actually going to be in this field. Here's my pitch as to how I think this happens realistically in a real world, why I felt comfortable picking it. I think that what likely happens is we get to the summer of 2027 and everyone else who's going to get in has launched their campaigns. And Jon Stewart is sitting at home one day, or he's sitting in the Daily Show writer's room one day, and he's looking at all of the various candidates, and he's just going, none of these people are going to be able to say what they need to say and do what they need to do to actually take this fascist threat on. And I think that Jon Stewart does believe that this is a fascist threat. And I think that he is going to have a moment where he kind of looks at himself in the mirror and he goes, am I really the only person who can do this? And that answer has a not unlikely chance of being yes.
And there is precedence for, comedians. Al Franken became a senator. Zelensky is now one of the largest, political figures in the world. Was a comedian from a similar kind of vein in terms of he took on a lot of political satire and
And there are not absolutely, and this is not an idea that comes out of nowhere. This is something that there are people starting to get behind. Kyle Kulinski of Secular Talk has said that Jon Stewart is his ideal candidate for 2028. There are political forces in the United States trying to make a Jon Stewart candidacy happen. So I think that I couldn't not pick him.
So your team is?
So my team is AOC, Tim Walz, John Ossoff, and Jon Stewart.
You happy with that team?
I'm happy with that team. I think that those are the people who I can see winning the nomination. Mm-hmm. I think that your team are the people who
are going to be there on the stage.
Are going to be there on the stage. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I feel more comfortable with this one than the NDP than I did with the NDP.
I definitely think my team, I can see every name on a podium.
Absolutely.
And when we go to the Wikipedia page, you'll see all their logos.
Yes, exactly. And I think Pritzker has a shot of winning. You picked people that if the right race happens for them, they can win. Mm-hmm. So that's where we're at. We don't have a ton else or really anything else to talk about.
No, I think this episode is just going to be like a mini episode. We give you our draft, and then hopefully, since it's just the draft, you don't have to wade through any other fluff. You click on this YouTube video to see 2028 and a Democratic draft. You get the draft.
That's what you get. And that's what you get.
And if you want to stick around and see more Canadian political takes and American political takes, then you can subscribe and and all that stuff.
Absolutely. And we'll be back next week covering more of the current news stories. But while we're on our family getaway, we figured we'd take half an hour and come say hi.
It's our grandma's 90th birthday.
Yeah. So we're going to get back to that. And thanks everyone for joining us. Have a good day.